bad at video games. Hey everybody, it's Kendall. Today I am going to talk to you about a video game called Lies of P. This is a game that is based on the Pinocchio story in the style of the Dark Souls games. In particular, I am going to show you some videos of the boss fights throughout the game, starting with the Parade Master. I think he's guarding the entrance to the hotel. I don't have, usually when I do solo podcasts, I script it out, and I don't have this scripted. Also, like, it's been a little while since I played this, so I just finished the game, but it's been a little while since I played the early game because it took about 3 weeks to play. I'd say I put about 40 or 50 hours into it. As you can see, there's a lot of Dark Souls style dodging. You've got they call them pulse charges, but they're the equivalent of Estus flasks. I've been playing a few games, and I was really in the mood for a Dark Soulsy game, and I heard this game was pretty good. And honestly, like, it's probably my favorite game that I played since Elden Ring. More mechanics here. There is a block mechanic, or a perfect guard they call it. That I never quite got the hang of. And as you can see, I'm not great at this. Not great in this boss battle. But just run behind him, chip away at him little by little. They got a little. I got a little critical hit on him there. Did help. You can see that I'm out of heals on the bottom left. One mechanic that's interesting is when you do run out of heals, you can earn a heal back by doing damage to enemies. So that's kind of cool. So I didn't realize until way late in the game that when that red circle glows, that you can use that you can get a special critical hit there. So as we can see, I got through that first boss. Now this next boss got me a few times. The Mad Donkey. Basically, you show up. You're Pinocchio. You show up to see Geppetto, and the donkey wants to kill you. He's got that bone saw. That's a good weapon. We'll see me using a similar weapon later in the game. But these one-on-one, like, sort of where you're fighting humans, boss fights are one of my favorite parts of the game. This fight, and then even more so the next two, really are the closest thing in any game that I've played, and I haven't played every game that's ever made or anything, but to really feel like you're dueling. You're not just trying to. Most boss fights in games, like people talk about, like, you either have quick time events or you have those situations where the boss is 50 feet tall and you just hit him in the ankle a bunch of times. But these fights, you're dodging, you're blocking. You can just, when you fight, you can feel that they are playing by the same rules as you for the most part. Some of these humans. As we can see here, I just was able to get my pulse charges. you get more pulse charges over the course of the game through through the P organ, which is a machine that your P organ is your heart, I think. The lore in this is weird. This guy blames Geppetto because I guess Geppetto, after Pinocchio or something, all the puppets went crazy. He made a bunch of puppets, and all the puppets went crazy and killed all the people. I left this cutscene in. I think as I go on in the videos, I don't leave the cutscenes in as much, but I thought it was really... This is the one time in the game where Pinocchio kind of sees the blood on his hands and feels guilty. But that's, you know, that's the beginning of the game. That's like, I think after this the you know, the title card shows up or whatever. Next up we've got the Scrapped Watchman. I guess he's the one actually that's guarding the, because that's the hotel. So he must be standing in front of the hotel. And this was like, when I saw this clip, this cutscene, this opening cutscene, you can tell that I beat this guy in one try because his opening cutscene is included. So spoiler alert. But like I saw this opening cutscene and I'm like, oh, this is a Dark Souls game. This is a Dark Souls game, all right. Oh, also, I don't know that I actually caught the lore reason for it, but there is an AI specter that will help with most boss fights, and you know, just like in Elden Ring with your Ash summons, he takes a bunch of the aggro to make it a lot easier to you know, to pump your damage in. Or in the really early game, he actually does damage. I feel like later in the game he's doing minimal damage with his fighting. Yeah, when they turn red like that, that means that only a perfect guard can block the attack. I wonder if anybody will actually watch this video. I don't know if it's doing an hour-long thing. I mean, I guess you know, if you want to see all the boss fights, you don't want to have to be bothered with playing the game. I guess people watch. I don't really watch videos of people playing, you know, streaming their video games or whatever. I mean, sometimes there's a few people that I would watch, but generally don't. So I don't know what the market's for. Yeah, you know, stabbing in the back. When the health bar glows like that, that means they're susceptible to being staggered. If you do a heavy attack like that, and then once they're staggered. Again, you go to, there's a red circle, there was a red circle over there that I could have gotten a critical hit, but I didn't. Okay, so this is maybe one of my favorite fights of the game. Well, maybe my favorite, definitely one of my favorites. This is Survivor. So this was really the fight that I felt the most like I was you know, really actually sword fighting, because there's a lot of dodging on both sides. There's a lot of blocking on both sides. He doesn't have any gimmicks, and I hadn't learned any gimmicks yet. The next human fight we'll see, I had learned at least one gimmick. But yeah, he's, you know, he's mad that he survived when everyone else died. You know, there's obviously a story there, and he's freaking gone insane. I will say, like, you do. This is a game where you kill some humans, but I do kind of like that you're mostly killing puppets and then later zombies. What I'm doing there with the electric thing is my they call it the Legion arm. You have a metal arm that has extra powers. I didn't really get the hang of the Legion arm until the very, very end, the final boss fight, when I used a different move. But for a lot of it, I was using that electric thing that would I think it would zap the enemies, but I'm not 100%. Man, this fight just keeps going, doesn't it? Right there, I got a good stagger in, but still, he's putting up a fight. Yeah, these human fights, they definitely, it's hard to get like a bunch of hits in on them. But yeah, and also this took, we saw 2 or 3 times that he killed me at the beginning of the video, but this was one of the, this took like a couple hours to beat him. I don't think I had to really like farm for instead of souls they call it ergo. If you're watching this video and you don't know what I mean when I say it's like a Dark Souls. So Dark Souls games are they're RPGs, role-playing games. Action. They're known for their difficulty, but also they've got a few mechanics. Your experience, both experience points and money, come in the form of souls, which you get by killing enemies. And in this game, but in all the non-Dark Souls games, they have to call it something else. So in this one, they call it ergo. And when you die, you leave in Dark Souls they call it a blood stain. There we go. Where you have a chance to, you lose your experience and then you have a chance to go pick it up. So here's the King's Flame Fuoco. It took me a bunch of tries. I had my wife look up the suggested weapon. That's why I'm using that weird Ninja Turtle scepter looking thing. Because he's weak to electricity, and I guess that one does some electric damage. Yeah, it was pretty hard. But yeah, so you, and then you use those to level up, and the leveling is really, really granular. You rather than just going up a level, you actually choose what stat to increase on every level. So whether it's going to be your vigor, which increases your stamina, your vitality will increase your hit points. For some reason, this game, instead of having strength, dexterity, and arcana, they have motivity, technique, and advance. If you're playing the game, and you haven't played a Dark Souls, in the early game, put points into your vitality. You need more hit points than you think you do. These bosses are tough. So we got through King's Flame Fuoco. Now for Archbishop Andrew. He's in a... This level had a really, really annoying platforming sequence that was much harder than the boss. I guess you would call it platforming. You're not really jumping. You're like walking across balance beams while zombies are coming after you. So in addition to the puppet the puppets all turning evil. There's a subplot that there's also this like petrification disease that turns people into stones or into zombies. Hence this guy. Yeah, if you're playing, you definitely, and then you want to choose if you're going to be doing strength or dexterity or arcana, and just, you know, make sure that you have a weapon that scales for that. The weapons, they have an interesting crafting system in this game where you actually, unless you have like a special weapon that has, you know, that's both sword, you know, that's both parts of the sword, you actually use you connect a handle and a blade, you connect a handle and a blade, and the handle determines the scaling of the weapon, and then the blade determines some other stats. And also you can adjust the scaling of the weapon. So I looked up, as you can see, I had a fire on my sword. That's another little. There's a bunch of little mechanics in this game, and usually when I play a game with 700 different mechanics, I don't necessarily engage with all of them. But there's something about this game that the way that it introduced them slowly enough. That I actually was able to engage with a lot of them. So you've got a grind. They call it a grindstone. You do have some weapon degradation in this game, but it's in the form of it's basically you just have to sharpen your weapon, and then also you can put a thing on the grindstone to give it a bonus when you use it, and it comes back when you heal, and so like this one had I had a flame grindstone, so I was able to set the fire on it. So this that might be a spoiler. That's a little hint at where the game is going there. Now, I thought that was Geppetto sitting there, but it is actually, I believe in that scene, that is Simon Manus, who we'll see later. There's going to be some serious spoilers in this as we go. If you're gonna play the game, you may want to duck out of the review and come back after you play it. It's a good game. You should play it. So this was the fight where I discovered throwables. Or maybe it was the one before it. Black Rabbit Brotherhood. This was a kind of a fun fight. You're mainly fighting their big eldest brother, but then they jump down. They're like a group of criminals that are kind of jerks. But yeah, this was a fun fight, and then you fight them again later. But yeah, there's a few fights where I use a bunch of throwables, and it really helps in the kind of mid game once they're available. In this, I think it's called the Malum District. There's a vendor who you'll come back to all kinds of times throughout the game to purchase some consumables. There's a consumable version of the grindstone to give different elemental effects to your weapon, and then there's lots of different throwables. I feel like the elemental weaknesses is a pretty key part of this game, and that's the kind of stuff that you just kind of have to look up on the internet. But so coming up next is probably, you can obviously see through this from this cutscene that they're going to be back. This was probably my favorite fight, because it was very again, like the Survivor fight. Like, it's very, you know, very much felt like a sword fight. You know, like what do you call it? Fencing. I mean, she's got a fencing style sword. I got some damage in on her though. My character is a motivity build, so a strength build. So for the first chunk of the game, I was using this this sword. It's like just the great sword that they start you out with. So I got her down to half, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna throw some fireballs at you." That takes a chunk out of her life. That is pretty, and it also burns her, so there's a little bit of ongoing damage too. Yeah, I was afraid. I was honestly afraid that that the throwables were gonna break the game at this point, just because they were pretty key in this fight as well as the Brotherhood fight, and I think maybe the Archbishop as well, or another one, I forget. But the thing with the throwables is they're expensive. So you only want to use them in a fight, like at least in the early game, you only want to use them in a fight where you think you're actually going to win. Just got to get one more hit here. There we go. All right, so this next fight was one that he's an optional boss, and I kind of noped out of him when I first saw him, and then I came back to him while I was getting ready for the final boss of the game. So you'll notice that that this one he doesn't seem quite as tough as some of the other ones. He's a mini boss later in the game, actually, and it was one of the hardest parts of the game for me. So I think I put a thing on my sword to make him stumble more, or maybe it's acid. I don't know. Yeah, it looks like there's acid on my sword. So that was a thing right there that almost got me killed. I didn't switch back to the pulse charges when I was trying to heal myself, and then I tried to sharpen my blade instead of doing the pulse charge. Just got to get that one more hit. There we go. See, he gives you a quartz, which I was able to use on the P organ. So now we fight the King of Puppets about halfway through the game, because up to this point we thought that the puppets were in charge. That he was the one that was causing all the problems, and that if I killed him, then it would make all the puppets not be evil. Of course, we're wrong, because it was only halfway through the game. Also, this was kind of the point in the game where I was like, oh, maybe I'll actually be able to beat this game, because proper Dark Souls games, I've only played the first Dark Souls, but I've never been able to beat it. I think I got to a Norlondo one time, which is, I guess, about halfway through the game. This guy, the other thing about this fight, I was like, especially after the Archbishop, I was like, oh no, this first half is way too easy. There's going to be a second half. And believe me, there was. The Romeo literally took 5 hours to beat. He's rough. And I think I only beat him because I got a good, good lucky run. He's weak to electricity. That's why he keeps stumbling. Yeah, I didn't love this. I didn't love this fight compared with some of the other human-sized ones, just because he seemed. I don't know. He can kind of teleport across the whole room, which is pretty annoying. But I think this was also this was the fight where I switched to the bone saw because I realized that it was doing a lot more damage. The downside of the bone saw is it doesn't feel quite as fencing-ish. So this fight, Champion Victor, he's the first time that we see what the alchemists have been working on. Basically, a cure to the petrification disease that turns people into freaks. And this fight I thought was kind of interesting because it's sort of he's like Bane, but he's like a, he's got like kind of the moves and acts kind of like a wrestler. I don't think it was too hard. But yeah, definitely you can see that I'm taking advantage of having the Spectre there to help me take up some of that aggro. So you can see he's glowing. If I can get a... There we go. See, I didn't even know... I guess I must have intuitively known that if you go to the red circle, the thing happens. Alright, so that was something that I do when it got to about halfway. Sometimes you turn on your elemental effect on your weapon. Got enough hits in to catch him on fire there. Oh, here, so that's a wish thing. That's another mechanic. A lot of other guides have said that you don't get to respec until late in the game. It's like a third of the way through the game that you get to respec your characters. So if you did the wrong thing, and the way that you do it is with this tree that gives gold coin fruit. And then you can use the other thing you can use the gold coin fruit for primarily is wishes. And the wish that I used for most of the game it was one that would heal my my Spectre. So the Owl Doctor is one that I actually just went back to after beating the game because I didn't know he existed. I was double checking the order of the bosses. So I am obviously way over leveled for this fight. I left his conversation in at the beginning because I thought it was kind of funny. He's talking about how if you're a patient, then he'll kill you.
That's just logic.
And he's also got his own little bone cutter, and he throws some stuff. I wonder how I also like some of these human bosses have really small boss stages, which is pretty, I don't know, I think is kind of cool. I kind of wonder how hard he would have been if I'd gone if I'd fought him, you know, at the appropriate time, because this is in the barren swamp. It's one of the hardest parts in the game. It sort of kicks off the late game, I would say. But maybe my favorite level. The levels in this game, honestly, I mean, the reason that I'm only including the boss fights in this video is most of the levels are kind of just okay. But yeah, the barren swamp was pretty good. It was in a chunk where I was like, okay, I just need to get through these harder parts. At least the first half of the game, the actual levels were pretty easy, almost a little disappointing. But then, yeah, in the second half, there were a few pretty good ones. So the green monster of the swamp was the boss from this one. I didn't think this guy was too rough. Obviously, he killed me a few times. But yeah, just the oh, also this level introduces the cannons. Those were pretty rough. There's an area where it's like wide open and they're shooting you with cannons, and you have to, you know, run past and then destroy the cannon. And then luckily the cannons don't respawn. Also, if you're keeping score at home, you may notice that I don't have the fights with the puppets of the future. The first one was in an earlier level, and then the second one was in this barren swamp, or the second and third one were in this barren swamp. The first one I didn't fight in the first round. I went back to him, and then these ones, and then the other ones here didn't really count as full-fledged bosses, but they were pretty cool. The Puppet of the Future is pretty cool, but yeah, just didn't. Yeah, they're not included in the video, unfortunately. I didn't push record in those fights because they were like I said, I was way over leveled. It was even more disappointing than the clown and the owl fights. So a big part of this game was just like making sure you pump enough damage into the bosses fast enough that your Spectre doesn't get killed. Because a lot of these boss fights would be very different if I had to fight them one-on-one with no Spectre. Which there are a few, obviously there are a few boss fights where you don't get the Spectre, but yeah, that's a big thing. Big heavy hit. I appreciate you guys watching. Here I'm just, you know, throwing a few, trying to get in whatever damage I can. All right. So, this guy, Robber Weasel, depending on if I include the sound, I haven't decided if I'm going to include the sound in the final product or not here, but he was definitely my least favorite of the, like, human fights, like the more mundane fights, I really felt like I wasn't doing a lot of damage to him.
You ought to give to the needy.
And then eventually I figured out that this fight, you basically just have to stagger him. You have to take your time and stagger him, which I mean, I don't know. It's kind of the opposite of what the other fights were, where I just felt like I had to, outmaneuver him. But like you hit him directly with his giant bone saw, and it barely does a sliver of damage.
Welcome to the city of the future, and the
And,
future is death.
He says like 2 lines over and over and over again. This is the city of the future, and the future is death. It's like he wants to rob you, and it's like, well, I mean, I'll give you something if you ask. I'll give you some money if you ask for it. You don't have to kill me over and over and over again. See, it's like I have to block and then run behind him.
Welcome to the city of the future, and the future is death.
And he's not an optional fight. The door behind him opens up once you beat him. So this level actually was pretty good. Yeah, like I said, the later game levels are pretty good. This was I think this is Krot Central Station. It did a pretty good job of. Another aspect of Dark Souls games is that the levels are kind of labyrinths that you open up shortcuts, and you have to heal. In Dark Souls, it's a bonfire. In here, they call it a stargazer. And when you heal, all the enemies respawn, or most of them. Yeah, man, this fight. This was one that I almost edited down, but then I was like, nah, I'll just leave it in. Also, I will also say the animation, where like you get behind them and then they completely freeze, leaves a little to be desired. Like stuff like that is the kind of stuff that probably would have been would not have gone through on the on an actual From Software Dark Souls game, but. All right, come on, almost there. Just one more hit. That's something I was not great at, was figuring out when people were, or how far away people were from my sword. Alright, so now we've got the Walker of Illusions. This is a great fight. She like screams and gives you whatever status thing. I think it's corruption. We'll say there's like at least 6 different status effects in this game, which is probably a few too many, but again, little nitpicks, not nothing too bad. I died to her a bunch of times, and then realized that that my gear was on slightly heavy. have to be less than 60% to keep your gear at a regular, whatever, disruption. That's what she gives you. If you get your disruption all the way to 100%, then, or if the bar fills up, then you instantly die, which is really scary in this level. You're like back on the streets of Krat, the town that this whole thing takes place in, and there's been like an earthquake, and there's like these weird orange crystals that cause disruption, and so like you just like walk out onto the street and like suddenly you randomly die and you don't know why. It's a pretty stressful little bit of the game. Once I realized that I was on slightly better stuff, I was take short work of the Walker of Illusions, but that just led me to the corrupted puppet. Basically, you get a message that the hotel, which has been your hub up to this point, is under attack. Geppetto's been kidnapped, and you take an elevator down, and all the stargazers won't let you teleport. So this fight is interesting because, now if you're gonna play this game, make sure that after you beat the Walker of Illusions, you immediately teleport to the hotel and get your gear leveled up, level yourself up and everything, do all that stuff. Well, I guess you can technically still. If you have anything you need to do at the hotel, do it before you go down the elevator afterward, because as soon as you go down the elevator afterward, that's what during this fight. So, I actually had to do a few things. First of all, you might notice that the handle for my weapon is a lot longer. I looked up the recommended weapon for this fight. It was I think it's called the Exploding Pickaxe. But my I did have the Exploding Pickaxe, but it wasn't upgraded in the hotel. So I stuck the bone cutter blade onto the Exploding Pickaxe handle, and that's the weapon I use for the rest of the game. It seems to like I don't totally understand all the different stats and things, especially for the weapons, but it seems to get more swings in. It has a longer range, and it staggers people real well. And then but I still was having trouble. So I did. Even though you're locked into a small area, there's a handful of enemies so you can farm for experience. I did that. And then I looked up a strategy online for this, and basically you get him to do his body slam. Run from him before he does his body slam. And he does 1, 2, 3, 4 hits. And then you have a chance to have a stand. The weapon staggers so easily. But as you can see, I'm very much running from him here. Again, we are getting into major spoilers for that kind of stuff. of course, the Black Rabbit Brotherhood has kidnapped Geppetto. So we got to go back for him. So this is interesting because this is chapter 10 of the 11 chapters, and it's like super short. It's basically just I think there's 2 stargazers, one at the beginning of the level and one after you finish beating the bosses. But yeah, here you have to fight the entire Black Rabbit Brotherhood, so it's a good thing I have the stargazer as a backup. The different characters have different elemental weaknesses, so I'm not sure. I don't remember why I think I just did the fire one because I liked fire for most of the game, just because it would do ongoing damage, and I'd rather have ongoing damage than just a simple stagger. So of course we knock out the regular brothers, and then the eldest, who was in the coffin, wakes up. Here I saw that my Spectre was starting to get low on health, so I gave him a wish. But I must add, that's a consumable. Yeah, it looks like acid. Does decent chunks of damage. So we finish this fight up, and then we'll be taking a submarine to the Isle of the Alchemists, where the final chapter. So, like, seriously, if you're considering playing the game, make sure that you take into consideration that we're really getting into major spoiler territory. There's a couple of twists at the end. So this is the worst boss in the game. I fought him for a long time, you know, trying to do a fair fight, and was doing like no damage to him at all. And so, you know, we looked up online how to beat him. Apparently, the only way that you can beat him, or like the preferred way or whatever, is you hit him in the leg there, which I've got targeted, because you can actually target him in like 3 different spots. But you hit him in that leg when you can. It's not that easy. Because he's pretty easy to dodge. But, yeah, I think I even put a thing on my sword to make it so he would stagger easier. So you put him on there. He falls down forward. Don't get hit. You know, don't get hit when he falls down. And then when he's staggered, you do half of his damage. It's pretty. Considering how enjoyable the boss fights from the rest of the game are, it's pretty disappointing. Also, this last level is a great level, but the first part of it is you're like running through sand, because it's like a beach in front of a castle. And there's a bunch of like fog and stuff, and it seriously looks like a Nintendo 64 game with the fog of war. part of that might be because I was playing on PS4, and so probably not playing on like the most optimized version of the game. But as you can see, I am doing no damage to him except for when I stagger him. And he does the shock status effect, which is really annoying because it makes it so that your heals don't heal as much. And I think it slows down your stamina recovery as well. I'm not 100%. But yeah, just annoying. But then the level, once you actually get into the castle, is like seriously epic. The soundtrack is epic. The it's real long, real labyrinthine. Like it is on par with like some of the best Dark Souls levels, or even like Elden Ring, like the capital in Elden Ring. So now we fight Laxasia the Complete, who I think should have probably just been the Guardian at the beginning of this level, but she's pretty rough. This was my buddy Jeff says this was his favorite boss fight. It definitely wasn't my favorite, but it had, there were some aspects of it that in retrospect I really like. I would say she's the second hardest boss. We're into the end game here, so be warned of spoilers. And she's the third to last boss, so you would hope that she would be one of the hardest. But of course, she's got two forms. This first form isn't so bad. I think I knocked out her first form on the first try. She was weak to acid, so there was a thing where like you were able to. But then she turns into her crazy flying electric form, and the fight gets rough. For the first like a lot of tries, luckily here she's using her electricity on the Spectre, but for like a lot of tries, I didn't know how to interact with the electric with her lightning bolts, and I just got instantly killed. I think I ended up using a perfect guard grindstone. Oh man, if she'd have shot me twice there, I would have died. Which made it a lot easier to block the electric bolts, and you can bounce them back at her. But it speaks to how over leveled I was at this point, that people online were saying you can bounce them back at her and they'll do a bunch of damage to her. They do like a little tiny sliver of damage to her, way less than like one of my shots. Yeah, she was only a few took multiple sessions. Like I had some long play sessions with this game, but yeah, she took multiple sessions, and the corrupted corrupted puppet master took multiple sessions just because I didn't have it quite figured out. I kind of had her down. So then we got Simon Manus, who, up to this point, you think that he's going to be the final boss. He was in love with Sophia, who has been the one that's been leveling you up the whole time and has been captured, and at this point she's dead. It took me this long to realize that the way that they were explaining me dying and coming back to life at the Stargazers in this game was that she was she was turning back time, which I thought was kind of clever. You know, not the most clever thing ever, but still kind of I don't know. I feel like it's the kind of thing that probably a million games have done, but I didn't see. So his first half was pretty easy, and then his second half, a lot of it just came down to just, you know, keeping moving, dodging the craziness, and then pumping some damage into him. Really didn't feel like this boss was necessarily that great. Although it is, you know, he's very weird looking Dark Souls-y craziness, which I like and appreciate. But at this point in the game, you know there's like one more shoe that's going to drop. At least I felt like it. Yeah. Also, between how difficult Laxasia was, and then this final level, which was just really long, and I was just like ready to be like, okay, I'm ready to be done with this game. I put in hours and hours and hours and hours, and it's kind of overstayed its welcome just a little bit. Because part of what's great about this game is that you feel like it's only, you're gonna get through it. Like it's gonna be a limited experience. It's not gonna be an endless a game that goes on forever and ever and ever. Yeah, as you can see, he has some crazy powers. It feels very much like fighting Master Hand at the end of Super Smash Brothers. But there is another twist, and even me telling you there's another twist is a spoiler. So like seriously, if there's any chance of you playing the game and you haven't played it yet, you should really probably turn it off now, because we're gonna get to the real spoiler of the real end of the game, that I think is freaking great. The ending is like, honestly, the writing in this game. Normally I really don't care about the writing in games and the stories. Like, I can count on a couple fingers the number of stories that I've cared about, and that includes Pokemon. I mean, because I like Pokemon stories. But if you don't include Pokemon stories, like, you know, I realized the other day that I didn't know what the Elden Ring was, in spite of spending 200 hours playing Elden Ring. Alright. So we beat him. This is your last chance. So we beat him. We saved Geppetto. Geppetto's like, okay, well, it was all actually... And at this point, there had been some other hints that Geppetto was behind it all. And Geppetto's like, okay, we got all this, ergo I can bring my son back to life, and we just need your heart. And so you have the opportunity to give Geppetto your heart, and then you'll die. And if you say no, you get to fight the nameless puppet, who, man, this fight was hard. You can see that I have changed my Legion arm to this Aegis, the shield, which really helps. I also, I think I'm at level 121 at this point, so I am super high level. I found a spot where you could just kill a guy that would give 2,000 ergo. And although the stats do cap, the leveling up, once you get past a certain point, doesn't, like, it's not like an extra 1,000 per level. It's like 1 extra ergo per level. So I was actually able to level up pretty high, pretty aggressively. So we get to the second half. This is where Geppetto loses control of the puppet. and he keeps on fighting me and fighting me. But yeah, the Aegis shield really does take a lot of soak up a lot of the damage, and you can still swing it while you hold the shield up, which is pretty wild. We're getting close. Well, thanks if you've stuck with me this long. I really appreciate it. But yeah, play Lies of P. It's a great game. Oh, man. And I mean, this guy killed me dozens of times. It was wild. So I was so happy when I was able to beat him. Just a few more shots. That was a big thing, was running from him and knowing... Here's where I was pro play. You know, I played super defensively, looking for a real window when he's glowing like that, because I knew that would get him. There we go, and we finish him off here. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. Subscribe to the Kendallcast Network, kendallcast.ninja. Listen to all the podcasts and everything. Yeah, and again, play Lies of P.